Amara Okafor's lips touched the cold, blue lips of the unconscious billionaire heir, and she breathed air into his lungs with a desperation that made her entire body shake. Chisom Adenuga lay motionless on the marble bathroom floor, where she dragged him from the overflowing bathtub, his designer shirt clinging to his chest, water pooling around them both. "Please, sir, breathe," she whispered, pumping his chest the way she'd seen in a YouTube video during her lunch breaks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe. She'd found him floating face down in the bathtub just 3 minutes ago, an empty pill bottle on the sink counter. The bathroom door had been locked from the inside, but Amara had heard the overflow alarm and used her master key, the one Mrs. Adenuga didn't know she had, to get in. Now, kneeling in her black and white maid's uniform in the most expensive mansion in Ikoyi, Lagos, she was performing CPR on a man she'd barely spoken to in the 6 months she'd worked here. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've ever had to make a life or death decision, and comment below where you're watching from. Chisom suddenly gasped, his body convulsing as water erupted from his mouth. His eyes flew open, dark, confused, terrified, and locked onto hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. Her lips were still inches from his, her hands pressed against his chest, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. "You're the maid," he choked out, coughing violently. "Yes, sir. I found you in the bathtub. You weren't breathing. The bathroom door exploded open. Mrs. Obioma Adenuga stood in the doorway, her designer Ankara gown swirling around her ankles, her face frozen in an expression that shifted from shock to rage in less than a second. Behind her stood 2 of her friends, society women Amara recognized from the endless parties the family hosted, their mouths hanging open in scandalized delight. "What is this?" Mrs. Adenuga's voice was soft, deadly. "What is this?" Amara scrambled to her feet, water dripping from her uniform. "Ma, your son, he was drowning. I pulled him from the bathtub. He wasn't breathing, So you decided to put your filthy mouth on my son?" Mrs. Adenuga's voice rose to a shriek. "In my house, while I was entertaining guests." "Mama, stop." Chisom managed weakly, try to sit up. "She saved my life. Saved your life." One of the society women, Mrs. Adeyemi, wife of a senator, stepped forward, her phone already out and recording. "Or compromised you. This looks like domestic betrayal to me. A scheming maid seducing the heir to the Adenuga fortune." "That's not what happened." Amara's voice cracked with desperation. Mrs. Adenuga moved closer, and Amara could smell her expensive perfume mixed with something darker. Calculation, malice. "I took you into this house when you were nothing. A poor girl from Enugu with no education, no family worth mentioning, no prospects. I gave you a job, fed you, clothed you. And this is how you repay me? By throwing yourself at my son. I didn't. There were pills." Amara pointed to the counter, but the pill bottle was gone. Her blood ran cold. "Pills?" Mrs. Adenuga laughed, cold and cruel. "I see no pills. I see a desperate woman caught in a compromising position with my son. You will pack your things and leave this house immediately. And if I hear one word about this, if you breathe one syllable of this lies to anyone, I will make sure you never work in Lagos again. I will make sure your entire family suffers. Do you understand me?" Amara thought of her 3 younger siblings back in Enugu, her mother's medical bills, the school fees, the rent, everything she'd sacrificed to get here. "I understand," she whispered. "Good." Mrs. Adenuga turned to her son, her voice softening into something almost loving. "Come, Chisom, let's get you cleaned up and rested. You've been working too hard. You're not thinking clearly." As Mrs. Adenuga helped Chisom to his feet, he looked back at Amara one last time. There was something desperate in his eyes, a silent message she couldn't decipher. Then his mother led him away, leaving Amara alone with the 2 society women who were already whispering, their phones capturing every angle of her humiliation. Mrs. Adeyemi smiled, showing too many teeth. "This is going to be all over Lagos society by dinner time. Poor maid caught kissing billionaire heir. What a scandal." Amara fled to the servants' quarters, her whole body trembling. She had 30 minutes to pack her life into 2 bags and disappear. But as she gathered her few belongings, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You saw something you weren't supposed to see. That wasn't a suicide attempt. Someone tried to murder Chisom Adenuga, and you're the only witness. Your life is in danger. Meet me tomorrow at Jazz Hole Restaurant, Victoria Island, 6 p.m. Come alone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. What do you think happens next? Comment below and share this story with someone who loves a good African drama. Amara sat on a Danfo bus heading back to Surulere, her 2 bags clutched on her lap, watching Lagos blur past the window. The city she'd loved for 2 years suddenly felt hostile, dangerous. Every face seemed to judge her. Every whisper seemed to be about her. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. WhatsApp messages from other domestic workers in the neighborhood flooded in. Someone had already posted a photo of her kneeling over Chisom in that bathroom. The caption read, "Gold digger maid caught trying to trap billionaire heir. Shame on women like this." The comments were vicious. These poor girls have no shame. She planned this. Probably drugged him. This is why you can't trust house help. Tears blurred Amara's vision, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in public. She found a room to rent in a compound in Surulere, a cramped space she'd share with 2 other girls, both shop attendants at the nearby market. The landlord demanded 3 months rent up front, which took almost all her savings. She had exactly 43,000 naira left to her name, and her family was expecting money by the end of the week. Her roommate, Blessing, was a sharp-tongued woman from Calabar with braids down to her waist and a perpetual look of suspicion in her eyes. She took one look at Amara and said, "You're running from something. I just need a place to stay." Amara replied quietly. Blessing studied her. "Well, don't bring your trouble to this house. I've worked hard for my peace." That night, Amara lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling fan that barely moved the humid air. She thought about the mysterious text message. She thought about Chisom's terrified eyes. She thought about the pill bottle that had vanished. Someone tried to murder Chisom Adenuga. The words echoed in her mind. If it was true, then she'd stumbled into something far bigger and more dangerous than she'd imagined. But if it wasn't true, if this was some elaborate trap, she could be walking into even more trouble. Her phone rang. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. Amara's stomach dropped. She let it ring twice before answering. "Mama." "Amara, my daughter." Her mother's voice was warm but strained. "How are you? How is work?" The lie formed on her lips before she could stop it. "Fine, Mama. Everything is fine. Thank God." Because Chitty's school sent a letter. They say if we don't pay his fees by Friday, they will send him home. The amount is 75,000 naira. Amara closed her eyes. Friday was 3 days away. She had 43,000 naira and no job. "And your sister Adiz," her mother continued, "she needs new textbooks. The teacher says she cannot continue without them. And you know my medicine." "Mama, I'll send the money," Amara interrupted, her voice cracking. "I promise. You're a good daughter, Amara. Your father would be so proud. You've taken care of us since he died. I don't know what we would do without you." After the call ended, Amara sat in the darkness, the weight of her family's expectations crushing her chest. She thought about the message again, about Jazz Hole Restaurant, about the danger. She had no choice. She had to go. The next morning, Amara woke at dawn and began her job search. She walked from house to house in Victoria Island, Lekki, and Ikoyi, offering her services. But every single door closed in her face. Some households didn't even let her finish her introduction. Others looked at her with recognition. They'd seen the photo and shut the door without a word. By afternoon, she was exhausted, humiliated, and desperate. She sat on a bench near Eco Hotel, watching expensive cars drive past, wondering how her life had fallen apart so quickly. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. "I know you're scared. I know you have no money and no job. I can help you, but only if you trust me. Jazz Hole, 6 p.m. Don't be late." Amara stared at the message for a long time. Then she went to a small boutique in Surulere and spent 2,000 naira. money she couldn't afford, on a simple but presentable dress. If she was walking into danger, she'd do it with dignity. That evening, she took another Danfo to Victoria Island. Jazzhole was an upscale restaurant with soft jazz music and dim lighting, the kind of place where Lagos's elite gathered for business and pleasure. The hostess looked at her dress and raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "I'm meeting someone," Amara said quietly. "Name?" I don't know his name." The hostess's expression turned cold. "Then I can't. She's with me." A deep voice interrupted. Amara turned to see a man in his early 50s, wearing an expensive agbada with intricate gold embroidery. His face was distinguished, handsome despite the gray in his closely cropped hair. He had the bearing of someone accustomed to power, the kind of man who commanded rooms without raising his voice. "Mr. Nwosu," the hostess said, suddenly obsequious. "Of course. Right this way. Emeka Nwosu." Amara knew the name. Everyone in Lagos did. He was one of the most successful business consultants in West Africa, advisor to governors and CEOs, a man who'd built an empire from nothing. Magazines called him the Kingmaker. He led her to a private booth in the back, away from prying eyes. As soon as they sat down, he slid a folder across the table. "Miss Okafor," he said quietly, "everything you need to know is in this folder. But before you open it, I need to ask you one question. How brave are you?" Amara's hands trembled as she touched the folder. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you brave enough to stand up to one of the most powerful families in Lagos? Brave enough to expose a conspiracy that involves murder, theft, and betrayal? Brave enough to save a man's life again? Not with CPR this time, but with the truth." "I don't understand." Emeka leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Chisom Adenuga didn't try to kill himself. His mother, Obioma Adenuga, has been slowly poisoning him for 6 months. She's also embezzling millions from the family company and planning to frame Chisom for the theft. You stumbling into that bathroom and saving his life disrupted her entire plan. Now she needs to discredit you before you can tell anyone what you saw." Amara's vision swam. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been investigating the Adenuga family for 8 months, and I'm close to exposing everything. But I need proof. I need a witness. I need you." "I'm nobody," Amara whispered. "I'm just a maid." "No." Emeka's voice was firm. "You're the woman who saved Chisom's life. You're the woman who saw what Mrs. Adenuga wanted to hide. You're the woman who can bring her down, but only if you're willing to fight." Amara opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were bank statements showing millions of naira transferred to offshore accounts. Medical reports showing elevated levels of arsenic in Chisom's blood. Photographs of Mrs. Adenuga meeting with suspicious men in dark corners. Text messages discussing the final dose and making it look natural. "If you help me," Emeka said, "I will protect you. I will make sure your family is taken care of. I will give you a job, a future, everything you need. But you have to testify. You have to be willing to stand in front of Lagos society and tell the truth." Amara looked at the documents, then at Emeka's serious face. She thought about her siblings, her mother, the life she dreamed of building. She thought about Chisom's desperate eyes and the pill bottle that had disappeared. "What do I have to do?" she asked. Emeka smiled. "First, we need to keep you alive. Mrs. Adenuga knows you're a threat. She'll try to silence you, either with money, threats, or worse. Second, we need to get Chisom away from her before she tries again. And third," he pulled out another document, "we need to make her think she's won. How? By making her believe you're going to take the money and disappear." Before Amara could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. She showed it to Emeka, who nodded for her to answer. She put on speaker. "Miss Okafor." Mrs. Adenuga's voice was silk and poison. "I hope you're settling into your new life. I have a proposition for you. 5 million naira to leave Lagos and never return. Sign a non-disclosure agreement, take the money, and disappear. Or refuse and watch everything you love turn to ash. You have 24 hours to decide." The line went dead. Emeka looked at Amara with something like admiration. "What do you say, Miss Okafor? Do we take her money and run? Or do we fight?" Amara stared at her phone long after Mrs. Adenuga's call ended, the weight of the decision crushing her lungs. 5 million naira. She could pay off her mother's medical debts, send all 3 siblings through university, buy a small house back in Enugu, and still have money left over. She could walk away from this nightmare and never look back. But she'd also be walking away from the truth, walking away from justice, walking away from Chisom, who might die if his mother wasn't stopped. I need to think, she said quietly. Emeka nodded. I understand. But while you think, let me show you something. He pulled out his phone and played a video. It showed Chisom in what looked like a hospital room, connected to an 4 drip, his face gaunt and pale. A doctor's voice narrated, patient shows signs of chronic poisoning. Heavy metal toxicity consistent with arsenic exposure. Without intervention, irreversible organ damage will occur within weeks. Amara's hands flew to her mouth. When was this taken? Yesterday. I have contacts at the private clinic where Mrs. Adenuga takes him for treatments. She tells everyone he's dealing with stress and exhaustion. In reality, she's having the doctors give him medications that mask the poisoning symptoms while she continues to slowly kill him. This is insane. Why would a mother do this to her own son? Emeka's expression darkened. Money, power, control. Chisom's father, Chief Obioma Adenuga, died 2 years ago and left his entire fortune to his son, with Mrs. Adenuga as trustee until Chisom turns 30. That's in 6 months. Once he takes full control, she loses access to billions of naira. But if Chisom dies before his 30th birthday, or if he's declared mentally incompetent, the money reverts to her permanently. Amara couldn't finish the sentence. The cruelty of it was beyond words. So you see why your testimony matters. You're the only person outside her circle who witnessed the aftermath of an attempt on his life. You're the crack in her perfect facade. Amara looked at the documents again, then at the video of Chisom in a hospital bed. She thought about her family, about the 5 million naira, about the easy way out. Then she thought about the man she'd pulled from that bathtub, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd whispered, "Thank you," before his mother dragged him away. I'll do it, she said. I'll testify. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me my family will be protected. Mrs. Adenuga knows where they live. If I go against her, she'll go after them. I promise. I have security teams ready. The moment you agree, your mother and siblings will be moved to a safe location, a nice apartment in Abuja, far from Mrs. Adenuga's reach. They'll be told it's a temporary relocation for your mother's medical treatment. They won't know about any of this until it's over. Amara nodded slowly. Okay, what's the plan? First, you call Mrs. Adenuga back. Tell her you'll take the money. Make her believe she's won. We need her confident, careless. Second, we wire you to record every interaction. Third, we arrange a meeting where she gives you the money, and where she inevitably can't help but gloat about her plans. People like her always need to prove how clever they are. And finally, we get Chisom away from her and into protective custody. What if she doesn't talk? What if she's smart enough to just hand over the money and let me go? Emeka smiled grimly. Trust me, women like Obioma Adenuga don't just want to win. They want to dominate. She'll talk. That night, Amara called Mrs. Adenuga from Emeka's secure line. Mrs. Adenuga, she said, her voice shaking just enough to sound genuine. I've thought about your offer. I'll take the money. I'll sign whatever you want. I just want to go home. There was a pause. Then Mrs. Adenuga's triumphant laugh. Smart girl. I knew you'd see reason. Meet me tomorrow at my lawyer's office in Victoria Island. 2 p.m. Come alone. Bring identification. Once you sign the papers, the money will be transferred immediately. Thank you, Ma. Oh, and Amara. Mrs. Adenuga's voice turned cold. If you're thinking of recording this conversation or going to the media, remember, I have eyes everywhere. I know you went to Jazz Hole tonight. I know you met with Emeka Nwosu. If you're planning something stupid, I will know, and your family will pay the price. The line went dead. Amara's blood turned to ice. She knows. She knows I met with you. Emeka didn't seem concerned. Of course she does. She has people watching you. But that's good. It means she's worried. Worried people make mistakes. What if she hurts my family before we can move them? I'm moving them tonight. Right now, while we speak, a team is at your mother's house in Enugu, explaining that you've arranged for her to receive specialist treatment in Abuja. They're packing as we speak. By morning, they'll be in a secure apartment with round-the-clock protection. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. Why are you doing this? Why do you care so much about bringing down Mrs. Adenuga? Emeka's expression shifted, something painful flickering across his face. Because 20 years ago, I watched her destroy my brother. He worked as Chief Adenuga's business partner. When he discovered she was embezzling from the company, she framed him for fraud. He went to prison for 5 years for crimes he didn't commit. By the time he was released and cleared of all charges, he'd lost everything. His business, his marriage, his reputation. He died of a heart attack 6 months later. He was only 42. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Help me make sure she doesn't destroy anyone else. The next morning, Blessing watched Amara get dressed in her only professional outfit, a pencil skirt and blouse she'd bought for job interviews. You're meeting a man, aren't you? Blessing said, suspicion in her voice. It's not like that. It's always like that. Men with money don't help poor girls out of kindness. Amara, they want something. Don't be foolish. But Amara just smiled sadly. Sometimes being foolish is the bravest thing you can do. At 1:45 p.m., Amara walked into a sleek office building in Victoria Island. The receptionist directed her to the 10th floor, where Mrs. Adenuga waited in a conference room with 2 men in suits, lawyers, presumably, and a briefcase on the table. Mrs. Adenuga looked immaculate in a cream-colored aso-obi, her makeup flawless, her smile sharp as a knife. Miss Okafor, so glad you can make it. Please sit. Amara sat, acutely aware of the tiny recording device Emeka had hidden in her bra. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Let's make this quick, Mrs. Adenuga said, pushing papers across the table. This is a non-disclosure agreement. You will never speak about your time working in my home, about what you saw in that bathroom, about my son, about anything. In exchange, you receive 5 million naira transferred immediately to your account. Sign here, here, and here. Amara picked up the pen, her hand trembling. This was it, the moment of truth. Before I sign, she said carefully, I need to know something. Why did you do it? Why try to kill your own son? Mrs. Adenuga's smile never wavered, but her eyes went cold. I have no idea what you're talking about. The pills, the bathtub, the poison. I know what you did. For a moment, the room was utterly silent. Then Mrs. Adenuga laughed, a genuine, delighted laugh that sent chills down Amara's spine. Oh, you stupid girl. You actually think you've figured something out, don't you? You think you're some kind of hero. She leaned forward. Let me tell you something about heroes, Amara. They die. They die broke, forgotten, and alone. While people like me, people who understand that the world is cruel and you have to be crueler to survive, we win. We always win. So you admit it? I admit nothing. But hypothetically, if someone wanted to inherit a fortune, and if that someone's ungrateful son was standing in the way, well, accidents happen. Suicides happen. Tragic, yes, but convenient. One of the lawyers cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mrs. Adenuga, perhaps we should. Be quiet, she snapped. Then back to Amara. You want to know why? Because I built that empire. Me. While my husband was alive, he treated me like a decoration. Pretty wife to show off at parties. But I ran that business. I made the deals. I grew the wealth. And when he died, he left everything to that weak, pathetic boy who has no idea how to hold on to power. So you decided to kill him. I decided to take what's mine. Now sign the papers, take your money, and disappear. Or don't sign, and watch your mother's medicine mysteriously become unavailable. Watch your brother get expelled from school on false accusations. Watch your sisters. The door burst open. Chisom Adenuga stood in the doorway, flanked by Emeka Nwosu and 2 security guards. He looked terrible, thin, pale, trembling, but his eyes were clear and burning with fury. Hello, mother, he said quietly. Mrs. Adenuga's face went white, then red, then white again. Chisom, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting at the clinic. You mean the clinic where you've been having them poison me for 6 months? His voice shook. Did you really think I didn't know? That I wouldn't eventually figure out why I kept getting sicker despite all the treatments? You're confused, darling. You're not well. These people are filling your head with lies. Stop. Chisom's voice cracked like a whip. Just stop. I heard everything. We all did. This entire conversation has been recorded and transmitted to my personal lawyers. It's over, Mother. Your plan failed. Mrs. Adenuga stood slowly, her face transforming into something ugly, something that made Amara understand true malice. You ungrateful child. After everything I've done for you, you try to murder me. I try to save you from your own weakness. You're just like your father, soft, sentimental, stupid. You would have run this company into the ground within a year. I was doing what needed to be done. Attempting to murder your son? That's what needed to be done. Mrs. Adenuga turned to Amara, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss. This is your fault. You should have let him drown. You should have taken the money and left. Now you've ruined everything. Emeka stepped forward. Mrs. Adenuga, I have enough evidence to bury you. Bank records showing embezzlement. Medical records proving poisoning. Testimony from clinic staff. And now a recorded confession. You're finished. But Mrs. Adenuga just smiled. A terrifying, unhinged smile. You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of. No idea who I know, what strings I can pull. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door, pausing next to Amara. Enjoy your victory, little maid. But remember, in Lagos, power always wins. And I am very, very powerful. Then she was gone, leaving chaos in her wake. Chisom sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. Amara wanted to go to him, to offer comfort, but she didn't know if she had the right. Emeka put a hand on her shoulder. You did well. That recording will hold up in any investigation. Mrs. Adenuga will face consequences for this. But Amara couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. That Mrs. Adenuga's threat wasn't empty. That night, as she lay in her cramped room in Surulere, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking, Billionaire Heir Chisom Adenuga accuses mother of attempted murder. Lagos society in shock. The story was everywhere. Social media exploded. The same people who'd called Amara a gold digger yesterday were now calling her a hero. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists wanting interviews, talk shows wanting appearances, strangers wanting to know her story. But there was one message that stood out from all the others. From Chisom. Thank you for saving my life. Twice. Can we talk? Tomorrow? Please. What do you think Chisom wants to tell her? Comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. Amara met Chisom at a quiet cafe in Lekki, far from the media circus that had engulfed both their lives. He looked better than he had in the conference room. Color returning to his face, his eyes clearer, but there was a weariness about him that seemed to go deeper than physical illness. Thank you for coming, he said as she sat down. I know things have been complicated. That's one word for it. Amara tried to smile, but her face felt stiff. A waitress brought them drinks. Chapman for her, fresh juice for him. And they sat in awkward silence for a moment, two people whose lives had collided in the most dramatic way possible. I owe you an apology, Chisom finally said, for what my mother put you through. The accusations, the firing, the threats. None of it was right. You don't have to apologize for her actions. But I do, because I knew something was wrong. I knew I was getting sicker, that the treatments weren't working. Part of me suspected. He trailed off, shaking his head. But I couldn't believe my own mother would try to kill me. I thought I was going crazy. Paranoid. When you pulled me from that bathtub, and I saw your face, saw someone who actually cared if I lived or died, it was the first time in months I felt like maybe I wasn't losing my mind. Amara didn't know what to say to that. The raw honesty in his voice made her uncomfortable, made her aware of the vast distance between their worlds, billionaire heir and poor maid, even if the labels felt meaningless now. What happens now, she asked. Now the investigators take over. Emeka's team is working with financial regulators to trace all the money my mother stole. The medical board is investigating the clinic. and my lawyers are working to have her removed from any involvement with the family business. He rubbed his face tiredly. It's going to be a mess. The press won't leave it alone. Lagos society loves nothing more than watching a powerful family tear itself apart. I'm sorry. Don't be. You saved my life. You exposed the truth. I should be thanking you, not the other way around. He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. Emeka told me you lost your job because of this, that you've been struggling to find work. Amara stiffened. I'm fine. You don't have to pretend with me. I know what my mother is capable of. She's been blacklisting you, hasn't she? Making sure no one in Lagos will hire you. The truth of it sat heavy between them. Amara had sent out 43 job applications in the past week. She'd received 0 responses. I want to help, Chisom said. I want to give you a job, a real job, not charity. I'm starting a new foundation focused on supporting domestic workers' rights, education, and protection. I need someone to help run it, someone who understands what it's like to work in these houses, who knows what needs to change. I want you to be my operations director. Amara stared at him. Are you serious? Completely. The salary would be substantial. 2 million naira a year to start, plus benefits, housing allowance, everything. You'd have a team, an office, real power to make change. 2 million naira a year. Amara's mind reeled. That was more money than she'd ever dreamed of earning. Her family would be secure. Her siblings could finish school. Her mother could get the best medical care. But something felt wrong about it. I can't accept that, she said quietly. Chisom looked stunned. Why not? Because it feels like payment. Like you try to buy my silence, or my loyalty, or I don't know. I saved your life because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected a reward. This isn't a reward. This is a job offer based on your qualifications and your courage. You stood up to one of the most powerful women in Lagos. You refused to be silenced or bought. Those are exactly the qualities I need in someone running this foundation. Amara wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But years of being poor, of being dismissed and underestimated, had taught her to be suspicious of generosity. Let me think about it, she said. Chisom nodded, disappointment flickering across his face. Of course. Take all the time you need. As they left the cafe, paparazzi materialized from nowhere, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. Chisom, is it true your mother tried to kill you? Amara, are you and Chisom in a relationship? Did Mrs. Adenuga offer you money to stay quiet? Chisom's security guards pushed through the crowd, hustling them toward his car. But not before Amara saw the headlines on someone's phone. Poor Maid and Billionaire Heir. A modern fairy tale or something more? In the car, Chisom apologized again. They're relentless. I should have chosen a more private location. It's fine, but it wasn't fine. Amara could already imagine the rumors spreading, the assumptions people would make. Gold digger, social climber, woman who used a family tragedy to advance herself. Her phone rang. Her mother. Amara, what is this I'm seeing on the news? They say you work for some billionaire? That his mother tried to kill him? What is happening? Mama, I can explain. The people in Abuja who came for us, they said you arranged for my treatment. But this apartment they put us in, it's too nice. Too expensive. Amara, what did you do? The accusation in her mother's voice cut deep. Even her own family assumed she'd done something wrong to get this help. I didn't do anything wrong, Mama. I promise. I was in the wrong place at the right time. Or the right place at the wrong time. I don't even know anymore. These rich people, Amara, they don't help people like us for free. What does this man want from you? He doesn't want anything. He's just grateful I saved his life. Her mother's skepticism was palpable. Be careful, my daughter. When you fly with eagles, you must remember you're still a chicken. Don't forget where you come from. After the call ended, Amara sat in silence, Chisom pretending not to have heard the conversation. But the words echoed in her mind. Don't forget where you come from. The problem was, she didn't know where she belonged anymore. Not in the world of domestic workers, where she was now seen as a traitor who'd gotten lucky. Not in Lagos high society, where she'd always be the poor maid who kissed a billionaire. Caught between two worlds, accepted by neither. For what it's worth, Chisom said quietly, I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. And I don't say that lightly. Before Amara could respond, his phone rang. His expression changed as he listened, his face draining of color. When? He asked tersely. How? Are they sure? He hung up, his hands shaking. My mother. She's disappeared. Left the country on a private jet early this morning. Her lawyers say she's claiming political persecution, that I'm mentally unstable and conspiring with enemies to steal the family fortune. She's filed countersuits against me, against you, against Emeka. She's hired the most expensive legal team in West Africa. Can she do that? She could do anything. She has money, connections, and no conscience. This is far from over. That night, Amara returned to her cramped room in Surulere to find Blessing packing her bags. What's happening? Amara asked. Blessing wouldn't meet her eyes. I'm moving out. My boyfriend found us a place. But you said, I know what I said, but things change. I can't afford to be associated with you anymore, Amara. People are talking. They say you're involved in some scandal with a billionaire family. My boss saw the news and warned me to stay away from trouble. I have to protect myself. Blessing, please. I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe you didn't. But in Lagos, it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what people believe. And people believe you're either a saint or a schemer. Either way, you're trouble. Blessing grabbed her bag and headed for the door. I'm sorry, but this is your mess, not mine. Alone in the room, Amara finally let herself cry. Great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. She tried to do the right thing, and now she had nothing. No job, no friends, no place in the world. Just a billionaire's gratitude and a notorious reputation. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think you've won? You've only made things worse. Mrs. Adenuga has powerful friends. Watch your back. Then another message, this time with a photo. It showed her younger sister Adiz walking home from school in Abuja, completely unaware of the camera watching her. The message below read, accidents happen to little girls who aren't careful. Amara's blood turned to ice. She immediately called Emeka. They're threatening my sister. They sent me a photo. Someone's watching her. I'm sending additional security now. Don't worry. Your family isn't a secure building. But this confirms what I suspected. Mrs. Adenuga isn't working alone. She has people in Lagos willing to do her dirty work. What do I do? You stay strong. You don't let them intimidate you. And tomorrow, you accept Chisom's job offer. What? What? Because right now, you're vulnerable. You're isolated, broke, and exposed. But if you're officially working for Chisom, you have protection. You have resources. You have legitimacy. It's not about charity, Amara. It's about survival. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She thought about her sister's face in that photo, about her mother's suspicions, about Blessing's betrayal, about the impossible position she'd been put in, damned if she accepted help, destroyed if she didn't. At 3 a.m., she made her decision. She texted Chisom, I'll take the job. When do I start? His response came immediately. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. I'll send a car. Thank you, Amara. You won't regret this. But as she lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of Lagos outside her window, car horns, generators, distant music, she couldn't shake the feeling that she already did regret it. That accepting this job meant stepping fully into a world that would never truly accept her. A world where her past would always define her, where every success would be attributed to luck or manipulation rather than merit. The next morning, a sleek black Mercedes arrived to pick her up. The neighbors came out to stare, whispering behind their hands. Amara could already hear the gossip spreading like wildfire. Did you see? The maid is riding in a billionaire's car now. She must have done something to trap him. At the Adenuga Foundation offices, a beautiful building in Victoria Island with modern art on the walls and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. Chisom introduced her to her team. 6 people, all watching her with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. This is Amara Okafor, Chisom announced. She's our new operations director. She'll be leading our domestic workers advocacy program. A woman named Ngozi, the communications director, raised an eyebrow. Forgive me for asking, but what are your qualifications? Do you have a degree in social work? Nonprofit management? No, Amara said honestly. I have a secondary school certificate and 2 years of experience as a domestic worker. I know what it's like to work 16-hour days for less than minimum wage. I know what it's like to be accused of things you didn't do. I know what it's like to be invisible unless someone needs to blame you for something. Those are my qualifications. Silence fell over the room. Then a young man named Tund, the program coordinator, smiled. That's the most honest thing I've heard in this office in months. Welcome to the team, Amara. Over the next few days, Amara threw herself into the work. She interviewed domestic workers across Lagos, documenting their stories of abuse, exploitation, and injustice. She created proposals for policy changes. She met with government officials, advocacy groups, and journalists. And slowly, painfully, she began to feel like maybe she belonged here. Like maybe she could make a real difference. But the threats didn't stop. Anonymous messages arrived daily. Photos of her family. Cryptic warnings. And then, 1 week after she started the job, the bomb dropped. A tabloid published an expose. Poor Maid's dark past revealed. Amara Okafor's family scandal exposed. The article claimed that her father hadn't died of natural causes, as she'd told people. It claimed he'd been involved in fraud, that he'd stolen money from his employer, that he'd committed suicide rather than face the consequences. It painted Amara as the daughter of a criminal, suggested she'd inherited his deceptive nature, implied that her entire story about saving Chisom was an elaborate scheme to infiltrate the Adenuga family. None of it was true. Her father had been a simple mechanic who died of malaria. But the story spread like wildfire, picked up by blogs, social media, news channels. Within hours, the hashtag #AmaraTruth was trending, with people debating whether she was a hero or a con artist. Chisom called her into his office, his face grave. I want you to know I don't believe any of this. It's clearly a smear campaign orchestrated by my mother. But your board believes it, Amara said quietly. I saw how they looked at me this morning. They want you to fire me. I'm not firing you. You have to. This scandal is damaging your foundation before it even launches. Every article mentions your judgment, questions why you hired someone with such a questionable background. If you keep me, you lose credibility. I don't care. I care. Amara's voice broke. I care because I've spent my whole life being judged by where I come from, who my parents were, how much money I don't have. I'm tired of being someone's controversy. I'm tired of being the poor girl who doesn't belong. Maybe everyone's right. Maybe I should just disappear. She stood to leave, but Chisom moved to block the door. Don't let her win, he said urgently. That's exactly what my mother wants. She wants you broken, defeated, gone. If you quit now, she wins. But if you stay and fight, if we expose our lies together, we both win. Amara wanted to believe him, but she was so tired of fighting. I need time, she whispered. Please, just give me time to think. She left the office and walked through Lagos in a daze, her phone blowing up with messages she couldn't bring herself to read. She walked past the expensive shops she'd never be able to afford, past the luxury hotels where people like her only entered through service doors, past the beach where families laughed and played without a care in the world. She ended up at a small church in Surulere, the kind of place where poor people came to pray for miracles. She sat in the back pew and closed her eyes. God, she whispered, I don't know what to do. I tried to do the right thing, and everything fell apart. Show me the way. When she opened her eyes, an elderly woman was sitting beside her, a stranger with kind eyes and a worn Bible in her lap. Child, the woman said gently, you look like someone carrying the weight of the world. I feel like I am. Let me tell you something my grandmother told me. She said, when powerful people try to destroy you, they're not scared of what you've done. They're scared of what you might do. You must be doing something very right for someone to work so hard to stop you. The words settled into Amara's heart like seeds taking root. That evening, she made her decision. She called Chisom. I'm not quitting, she said, but I'm also not hiding. We're going to hold a press conference. I'm going to tell my story, all of it. The truth about my father, about what really happened in that bathroom, about your mother's threats. Everything. And if people choose not to believe me, that's their choice. But at least they'll have heard the truth from my own mouth. Are you sure? Chisom asked. Once you do this, there's no going back. The scrutiny will be intense. I'm sure, because I'm done letting other people tell my story. The press conference was scheduled for the following week. But 2 days before it was supposed to happen, Amara received a package at the foundation office. Inside was a USB drive and a note in elegant handwriting. If you proceed with the press conference, this video will be released. It shows exactly what kind of woman you really are. Consider this your final warning. A friend. With shaking hands, Amara plugged the USB into her computer. The video showed her from 6 months ago in the Adenuga mansion having a conversation with one of the other maids, a conversation Amara had completely forgotten about. In it, the other maid was asking about Chisom, commenting on how handsome he was, how rich, and Amara's voice said, clear as day, if I could get close to someone like him, my family would never have to worry about money again. I'd do anything to change my life. It was taken completely out of context. She'd been joking, half asleep after a 16-hour shift, making idle conversation. But on video, edited and presented alone, it looked like a calculated admission of gold-digging intent. If this video went public, everything she'd said, everything she'd fought for would be dismissed as lies. She'd be destroyed. Amara stared at the video playing on her screen, her stomach churning with each loop of her own voice. I'd do anything to change my life. The words haunted her, twisted into something ugly by Mrs. Adenuga's manipulation. She played it 12 times, searching for some detail that would prove it was fake, but it wasn't. It was real. She'd actually said those words. Chisom stood behind her desk, watching over her shoulder. It's out of context. It doesn't matter. Amara's voice was hollow. Context doesn't trend on social media. Headlines don't include nuance. People will see this and think they were right about me all along. Then we don't let them see it. What do you mean? Chisom pulled out his phone and made a call. Emeka, we have a situation. He explained the video, the threat, the impossible position Amara was in. When he hung up, his jaw was set with determination. Emeka says we move the press conference up to tomorrow morning. We go public before my mother can release that video. And we don't just tell your story. We tell the whole story, including the video. We show it ourselves and explain the context before she can weaponize it. That's insane. We'll be giving her ammunition. No, we'll be taking away her power. The only reason this video is dangerous is because it's a secret she can hold over you. But if we expose it first, if we control the narrative, she has nothing left to threaten you with. Ngozi, the communications director who'd been skeptical of Amara from day one, stepped into the office. She'd been listening from the doorway. He's right. I've been in crisis communications for 15 years. The worst thing you can do is let your enemy decide when and how your secrets come out. We go on offense, not defense. But what if people don't believe me? Amara whispered. What if they decide I'm a liar, that everything I've said is part of some elaborate con? Ngozi's expression softened. Then at least you'll know you told the truth. And in my experience, the truth has a way of rising to the surface eventually. But you have to be brave enough to speak it first. That night, Amara barely slept. She rehearsed what she would say 1,000 times, each version feeling inadequate. How do you explain your entire life in a few minutes? How do you make strangers understand that you're not a saint or a villain, just a human being trying to survive? At dawn, Tund arrived at her apartment with coffee and a sympathetic smile. I brought you breakfast. Ngozi said you probably wouldn't eat. I can't eat. I feel sick. Then just drink the coffee and listen to me for a minute. Tund sat beside her. I grew up in Ajagunal, the slums. My mother sold pure water on the streets to send me to school. When I got a scholarship to university, people in our neighborhood said I must have cheated or slept with someone important. Poor people aren't supposed to succeed on merit, you know? So whatever happens today, remember that some people will never believe in you because believing in you would mean confronting their own failures and prejudices. You can't control that. You can only control your truth. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the foundation offices. By 9:30, the room was packed with journalists, cameras, and curious onlookers. Amara stood backstage, her hands shaking so hard she had to clasp them together. Chisom stood beside her, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. "Last chance to back out," he said, though his tone suggested he hoped she wouldn't. "No backing out. Let's do this." Ngozi stepped to the microphone first, her voice clear and professional. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today, Miss Amara Okafor and Mr. Chisom Adenuga will be making a joint statement regarding recent events involving the Adenuga family. After their statement, they will take limited questions. Please hold all questions until the end." Amara walked to the podium on legs that didn't feel like her own. The camera flashes were blinding. She gripped the sides of the podium to steady herself. "My name is Amara Okafor," she began, her voice surprisingly steady. "I am 24 years old. I am from Enugu State. My father was a mechanic who died of malaria when I was 19. My mother is a petty trader who struggles with diabetes. I have 3 younger siblings who depend on me. 2 years ago, I came to Lagos to find work so I could support my family. These are the facts of my life. Not glamorous, not particularly interesting, just ordinary." She paused, gathering her courage. 6 weeks ago, I was working as a domestic worker in the Adenuga mansion. On a Thursday morning, I found Chisom Adenuga unconscious in a bathtub, not breathing. I performed CPR and saved his life. For this, I was fired, threatened, and blacklisted from finding work in Lagos. I was told that if I spoke about what I saw, evidence of an attempted murder, my family would suffer. The room erupted in whispers. Cameras clicked faster. Mrs. Obioma Adenuga has been waging a campaign to destroy my reputation. She has spread lies about my father, about my intentions, about my character. And yesterday, she sent me a video that she intended to use to discredit me. Amara nodded to Tund, who played the video on the large screen behind her. Her own voice filled the room. "I'd do anything, anything to change my life." She waited for the murmurs to die down before continuing. "That video is real. Those are my words. I did say that. What the video doesn't show is that I was joking with a fellow maid after a 16-hour shift, responding to her comment about how handsome Mr. Adenuga was. We were 2 tired women fantasizing about a different life. I wasn't plotting. I wasn't scheming. I was just tired." Her voice broke, but she pushed on. "I'm not perfect. I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who saw someone drowning and decided to help, even though it cost me everything. I don't regret saving Chisom's life, but I do regret that doing the right thing has been twisted into something ugly by people who fear the truth." She stepped back, and Chisom took her place at the microphone. "My mother, Obioma Adenuga, has been slowly poisoning me for 6 months," he said, his voice strong despite the tremor in his hands. "She has embezzled millions from our family business. She attempted to kill me and frame me for financial crimes so she could inherit my father's fortune. Amara Okafor saved my life, not once but twice, once with CPR and once by having the courage to expose the truth when it would have been easier and safer to stay silent." He pulled out a folder. "I have medical records proving the poisoning. I have financial records proving the embezzlement. I have testimony from clinic staff who were complicit in the poisoning. And I have a recorded confession from my mother admitting to her crimes. All of this evidence has been shared with the appropriate regulatory authorities. My mother is currently in hiding, but we will pursue every legal avenue to ensure she faces consequences for her actions." The questions erupted like fireworks. "Chisom, do you have feelings for Miss Okafor? Amara, did you accept money from the Adenuga family? Is it true you're now working for the foundation? How do you respond to accusations that this is all a publicity stunt?" Ngozi stepped forward, fielding questions with professional grace. But Amara could barely focus on the words. She felt drained, exposed, as if she'd stripped naked in front of the world. Then one journalist, a woman from a popular blog, stood up. "Miss Okafor, my mother was a domestic worker for 20 years. She was paid starvation wages, sexually harassed by her employer, and fired without benefits when she got too old to work. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for representing women like her who never got justice." The woman sat down, tears streaming down her face. And suddenly, something shifted in the room. Other journalists began asking different questions. Questions about domestic workers' rights, about the Foundation's mission, about what changes Chisom and Amara hoped to achieve. By the time the press conference ended, Amara felt cautiously hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, the truth would be enough. But as they left the building, surrounded by security, a man in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. "Mr. Adenuga," he shouted. "I represent Mrs. Obioma Adenuga. My client wishes to respond to these slanderous accusations. She will be holding her own press conference this evening to present evidence that you are mentally unstable and that Miss Okafor is a con artist who has manipulated you for financial gain. We will prove that this entire scandal is a fabrication designed to steal your mother's inheritance." The man handed Chisom an envelope. "You're being served with a defamation lawsuit. See you in the courtroom." Back at the Foundation, Emeka reviewed the lawsuit documents with a grim expression. "She's suing you both for 50 billion naira. She's claiming emotional distress, defamation, and conspiracy to defraud. She's also filed for an emergency injunction to freeze all Adenuga family assets until the case is resolved." "Can she do that?" Amara asked. "She can try. Whether she'll succeed is another matter. But this is going to get very ugly, very public, and very expensive." That evening, Mrs. Adenuga's press conference aired on every major channel. She appeared via video link from London, looking impeccable in designer clothes, her face perfectly made up, her voice trembling with what seemed like genuine emotion. "I'm a mother whose son has turned against her," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Chisom has struggled with mental health issues for years. Depression, paranoia, delusions. I've spent millions trying to get him help, trying to protect him from himself. And then this woman, this opportunist, saw a vulnerable man and decided to exploit him." She showed photos, images of Chisom at various parties over the years, drinking, laughing, looking carefree. "Does this look like a man being poisoned? Does this look like someone on death's door?" She showed bank statements, legitimate transfers from the company accounts. "This is not embezzlement. This is normal business operations. My son is not well, and he's been convinced by manipulative people that his own mother is his enemy. It breaks my heart." The performance was masterful. By the time it ended, social media was divided. Half believed Amara and Chisom. Half believed Mrs. Adenuga. The hashtag who do you believe trended worldwide. Amara's phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, many vicious. "You're a disgrace to poor people everywhere. Gold digger trash. I hope you rot in hell. But also, thank you for speaking up for domestic workers. You're brave. Don't let them break you. My sister was abused by her employers. Your story matters." That night, Chisom called her. "Are you okay?" "Honestly? No. I feel like I'm drowning. I know the feeling." A pause. "Amara, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you before." Her heart skipped. "What?" "I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and terrifying. "You can't," Amara whispered. "We're too different. This situation is too complicated." I know it's the worst possible timing. I know people will say it proves my mother right, that you manipulated me. But I can't help how I feel. You're the first person in years who's treated me like a human being instead of a bank account or a trophy or a problem to be managed. You saved my life, and somewhere along the way, you became the reason I want to keep living." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Chisom, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens with the lawsuit, whatever happens with my mother, I want you to know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me." After he hung up, Amara sat in the darkness of her small room, her mind spinning. She thought about the poor girl from Enugu who'd come to Lagos with nothing but hope. She thought about the woman she'd become, stronger, braver, but also more cynical, more wounded. Could she love Chisom? Did she already? The question terrified her because the answer was yes. But loving him meant stepping fully into a world that would always see her as an outsider. It meant accepting that people would always question her motives, always assume the worst. It meant fighting battles she'd never asked for against enemies she couldn't defeat. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. You should have taken the money and disappeared. Now you'll lose everything, including him. Want to know what happens next? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this story with your friends who love drama. What do you think? Should Amara follow her heart or protect herself? Comment below. Chapter 6. 3 weeks later, the defamation lawsuit dominated Lagos headlines. Mrs. Adenuga had returned to Nigeria with an army of lawyers, each one more expensive than the last. She positioned herself as a wronged mother, giving tearful interviews about her mentally ill son and the scheming maid who'd driven them apart. Society women rallied around her. Influential businessmen spoke in her defense. The narrative was shifting, and Amara could feel herself drowning in public opinion. The foundation work continued, but under a cloud of controversy. Every program Amara proposed was scrutinized. Every interview she gave was dissected for signs of deception. The emotional manipulation from Mrs. Adenuga was working, slowly, methodically, turning even sympathizers against them. Amara sat in Emeka's office, reviewing strategy documents. "We're losing," she said flatly. "Your mother is too powerful, too connected. People want to believe her, because believing her is easier than confronting the ugly truth about how society treats poor people." Emeka shook his head. "We're not losing. We're just fighting an uphill battle. But I have something that might help." He pulled out another folder, this one thicker than all the others. "I've been investigating Mrs. Adenuga's past. Her maiden name was Obioma Adenuga. 25 years ago, before she married Chief Adenuga, she worked as a secretary for a pharmaceutical company. That company was involved in a massive drug scandal. They were testing experimental medications on poor patients without consent. Several people died. What does this have to do with? Obioma was the one who falsified the consent forms. She was part of the conspiracy. But when everything fell apart, she disappeared. Changed her name, reinvented herself, married into wealth. She's not the respectable society woman she pretends to be. She's a con artist who's been running schemes for decades." Amara felt a flicker of hope. "Can we prove this? I have testimony from people who worked with her back then. I have documents she signed. It's enough to destroy her carefully constructed image." But Emeka hesitated. Using this information means digging into old wounds. Some of the victims' families are still alive. They might not want this scandal revisited. "We have to ask them," Chisom said, entering the office. He looked better than he had in weeks, stronger, healthier now that he was away from his mother's poison. "If they're willing to speak, we use this. If not, we respect their privacy and find another way." Over the next week, Emeka tracked down 5 families affected by the pharmaceutical scandal. 3 refused to get involved, too painful, too long ago. But 2 agreed to speak. One was a woman named Mrs. Adenuga, whose daughter had died at age 16 after being given experimental medications without proper consent. Amara met with Mrs. Adenuga in a modest apartment in Yaba. The woman was in her 60s now, her eyes carrying decades of grief. "My bunmi was everything to me," Mrs. Adenuga said, showing Amara a faded photograph of a beautiful teenager with her mother's smile. "She had asthma. They told us there was a new treatment completely safe. They said they just needed her to try it for a few weeks. We trusted them. We signed papers we didn't understand. And then," her voice broke. "Then she started having seizures. Her organs failed. She died in my arms." "I'm so sorry," Amara whispered. "When everything came out, the illegal testing, the falsified documents, we tried to get justice. But the company paid off everyone. The evidence disappeared. The people responsible got away with it, including that woman." Mrs. Adenuga's hands trembled with rage. "Obioma Adenuga. I never forgot her name. She was the one who brought us the papers to sign. She looked me in the eye and promised my daughter would be safe. And then she vanished when people started dying. Why are you willing to speak now?" "Because I saw you on television. I saw how that woman was trying to destroy you the same way she destroyed us. With lies, with manipulation, with power. And I thought, maybe this time someone could stop her. Maybe this time the truth will matter." With Mrs. Adenuga's testimony and the documentation Emeka had gathered, they prepared for a counteroffensive. But the night before they were supposed to go public with the new evidence, Chisom received a phone call that changed everything. It was from his mother. "Chisom, darling." Mrs. Adenuga's voice was honey and venom. "I think it's time we talked. Meet me tomorrow at the house. Noon. Come alone, or people will get hurt." "I'm not coming alone," Chisom said. "Then bring your little maid. I like to talk to her too. About choices. About consequences. About what happens to girls who don't know their place." The line went dead. Emeka immediately advised against going. "It's obviously a trap. She'll have witnesses there to claim you threatened her, or she'll try to manipulate you, or worse." But Amara surprised everyone by saying, "We should go. She wants to talk? Let's talk, but on our terms." The next day, Amara and Chisom arrived at the Adenuga mansion accompanied by Emeka and 2 security guards. The house that had once represented everything Amara aspired to now felt like a mausoleum of broken dreams. Mrs. Adenuga waited in the sitting room, looking regal in traditional attire, surrounded by her lawyers and several society women, witnesses to whatever she had planned. "Thank you for coming," she said, her smile sharp. "Please sit." "We'll stand," Chisom replied coldly. "Suit yourself." Mrs. Adenuga poured herself tea with deliberate grace. "I wanted to propose a settlement. Drop all accusations against me. Issue a public apology, and I'll withdraw my lawsuit. You both can walk away with your dignity mostly intact." "No," Amara said immediately. "No." Mrs. Adenuga laughed. "You haven't even heard my full offer. I'm willing to give you money, Amara. 10 million naira. More than enough to support your family for years. All you have to do is disappear and admit you lied about everything." "I didn't lie. Does it matter? The truth is what people believe, and I can make people believe anything." Mrs. Adenuga stood, moving closer to Amara. "You think you're winning? You're not. You're a poor girl playing in a rich woman's game. I will destroy you. I will destroy your family. I will make sure your name becomes synonymous with deceit and disgrace. And when I'm done, you'll wish you drowned in that bathtub instead of my son." The room went silent. Then Amara laughed, a genuine, almost relieved laugh. "You just confessed." Mrs. Adenuga's expression flickered. "What?" Amara pulled out her phone, which had been recording the entire conversation. "You just admitted, in front of witnesses, that you tried to kill your son. You'll wish you drowned in that bathtub instead of my son." Your words, Mrs. Adenuga. Recorded. Witnessed. For the first time, Amara saw fear flash across Mrs. Adenuga's face. "That recording is inadmissible," one of her lawyers sputtered. "It was obtained without consent." Actually, Emeka interjected smoothly. Under Nigerian law, one-party consent is sufficient for recording conversations. Amara broke no laws. Mrs. Adenuga's mask finally cracked. Her face contorted with rage. "You think you're clever? You think this changes anything? I have power. I have money. I have connections that reach the highest levels of this country. You have nothing. We have something better than power," Chisom said quietly. "We have the truth, and the truth is about to come out. All of it." Emeka pulled out his own folder, the pharmaceutical scandal documents. Mrs. Obioma Adenuga, also known as Mrs. Obioma Adenuga. 25 years ago, you were part of a conspiracy that killed 6 people, including a 16-year-old girl named Bunmi Ademola. You falsified medical consent forms for illegal drug trials. When the scandal broke, you disappeared and reinvented yourself. But we found the families. We found the evidence. And tomorrow, the world will know exactly who you really are. Mrs. Adenuga's face went white. "You can't. You have no right." "We have every right," Amara said, her voice stronger than she'd ever heard it. "You tried to destroy me for doing the right thing. You poisoned your own son. You stole millions. You built your entire life on lies and manipulation. But it ends now." One of the society women stood abruptly. "Obioma, is this true? Did you really do those things?" Mrs. Adenuga's eyes darted around the room, looking for an ally, but even her carefully cultivated friends were stepping back, their expressions shifting from support to disgust. "It was a long time ago," Mrs. Adenuga said, her voice cracking. "I was young. I didn't know." "You knew," Emeka interrupted. "You knew exactly what you were doing. Just like you knew what you were doing when you poisoned Chisom. Just like you knew what you were doing when you tried to destroy Amara. You're not a victim. You're a predator who's been hunting vulnerable people for decades." Mrs. Adenuga's composure shattered completely. She lunged at Amara, her manicured nails reaching for her face. "This is all your fault. You ruined everything. You should have died that day. You should have let him die." Security guards pulled her back as she screamed, thrashing like a wild animal. The society women fled, horrified. Her lawyers frantically tried to regain control of the situation. But it was too late. The mask had fallen. The world had seen the real Obioma Adenuga. The next day, every media outlet in Nigeria ran the story. The pharmaceutical scandal, the attempted murder, the embezzlement, the complete unraveling of one of Lagos society's most respected figures. Mrs. Ademola gave a heartbreaking interview about her daughter Bunmi, holding up the same faded photograph, her voice steady despite the tears. "Justice delayed is not justice denied," she said. "My daughter's death finally means something today." The public reaction was swift and merciless. Companies that had done business with Mrs. Adenuga cut ties immediately. Society women who defended her now claimed they'd always suspected something was wrong. The same people who called Amara a gold digger were now calling her a hero. But Amara felt no satisfaction in the victory. She sat in her small apartment. She'd refused to move somewhere nicer despite Chisom's offers, and stared at the flood of messages on her phone. Apologies from people who doubted her. Praise from strangers. Interview requests from international media. She was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually drained. A knock on her door. Chisom stood there with takeout food and a tentative smile. "Thought you might be hungry," he said. She let him in, and they sat on her small bed, eating jollof rice and chicken, the silence comfortable despite everything. "What happens now?" Amara finally asked. "Now the authorities handle my mother's case. The evidence is overwhelming. She'll face consequences. Maybe not as severe as we'd like, but she'll face them. The family company is being restructured. I'm taking full control. The foundation is expanding faster than we imagined. Donations have flooded in. And you," he paused, "you can finally breathe." "Can I?" Amara set down her food. "Everywhere I go, people recognize me. Some worship me. Some hate me. But nobody just sees me as me. I'm either a saint or a sinner. Never just Amara. I see you as just Amara," Chisom said softly. "The woman who saved my life. The woman who refused to be silenced. The woman who's too stubborn to know when to give up." He took her hand. "The woman I love." Amara's breath caught. "Chisom, we can't." "Why not?" "Because of what people will say. People are always going to talk. They'll say you're with me for money. They'll say I'm with you to prove a point. They'll never believe we're together simply because we choose each other. But I don't care what they think anymore. I only care what you think." "I think." Amara's voice trembled. "I think I'm terrified. I think loving you means accepting a life I never wanted. Cameras, scrutiny, judgment. I think it means giving up the quiet, simple life I dreamed of. I think it means being brave in ways I'm not sure I can be." And Chisom searched her eyes. "What else do you think?" "I think I love you anyway." The words came out as a whisper, but they felt like thunder. "I think I've loved you since you looked at me in that bathroom like I was the most important person in the world. I think I'm terrified of losing you. And I think," tears spilled down her cheeks, "I think I deserve to be happy, even if the world doesn't think so." Chisom kissed her then, gentle, reverent, like she was something precious. And for the first time in weeks, Amara felt the weight lift from her shoulders. Not completely, but enough to breathe. 6 months later, Amara stood at a podium in front of 500 people at the African Domestic Workers Conference. She wore a beautiful Ankara suit that Ngozi had helped her pick out, her hair styled naturally, her makeup minimal. She looked confident, poised, powerful, everything she'd never imagined she could be. "My name is Amara Okafor," she began, her voice carrying across the auditorium. 6 months ago, I was a maid earning 40,000 naira a month. Today, I'm the executive director of the Adenuga Foundation for Workers' Rights. My journey from there to here was not easy. It was not fair, but it taught me something crucial. Our circumstances don't define us. Our choices do. She told her story, the real story, all of it. The poverty, the struggle, the bathroom incident, the threats, the betrayal, the fight. The audience listened, rapt. Mrs. Obioma Adenuga is currently serving a 10-year prison sentence for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy, Amara continued. The pharmaceutical company involved in the deaths of 6 patients 25 years ago has finally been held accountable. And our foundation has successfully lobbied for new legislation protecting domestic workers across Nigeria. Minimum wage guarantees, mandatory days off, protection from abuse. She paused, emotion welling up. But more important than any of that, we've started conversations about power, about class, about the invisible women who clean our homes, cook our food, and raise our children while remaining invisible to society. We made them visible, and that's just the beginning. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, a young woman approached Amara, maybe 20 years old, wearing a simple dress, nervousness in her eyes. "Miss Okafor," she said shyly, "I work as a housemaid in Ikoyi. My madam treats me badly, doesn't pay me on time, calls me stupid. I was going to quit and go back to my village. But then I heard your story, and I thought, maybe I deserve better. Maybe I should fight." Amara took the girl's hands in hers. "What's your name?" "Chinanai." "Chinanai, you absolutely deserve better. Come to our office tomorrow. We'll help you. We'll connect you with resources, with legal aid if needed, with other jobs if that's what you want. You don't have to fight alone." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you for showing us we matter." As Chinanai walked away, Chisom appeared at Amara's side. He'd been watching from the back of the auditorium, pride evident on his face. "You were amazing," he said. "I was terrified. You're always terrified, but you do it anyway. That's what makes you brave." They walked out of the conference center together, hand in hand. Cameras flashed. They were still news, still controversial, still the subject of endless gossip. But Amara had learned to tune out the noise. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "I watched your speech on a live stream. Your father would be so proud." "I'm proud. You've become exactly who you were meant to be." Tears pricked Amara's eyes, but they were good tears this time. That evening, Chisom took her to dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. The city sprawled beneath them, millions of lights twinkling in the darkness, each one representing a story, a struggle, a dream. "I have something to ask you," Chisom said, suddenly nervous. Amara's heart skipped. "What?" He pulled out a small box, and Amara's breath caught. But when he opened it, instead of a ring, there was a key. "This is the key to a new house," Chisom explained. "Not a mansion, not something extravagant. Just a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood in Lekki. 3 bedrooms. One for you, one for your mother when she visits, one for your siblings when they come stay. A small garden, a real kitchen, a place that's yours, no strings attached. Whether you marry me or not, whether we stay together or not, this house is yours. Because you deserve a home, Amara. Not a room you share with strangers. Not a servant's quarters. A real home." Amara stared at the key, tears streaming down her face. "Chisom, I can't accept." "Yes, you can. Because this isn't charity. This isn't me trying to buy your affection. This is me recognizing that you've worked hard, fought hard, and deserve security. The house is titled in your name. It's paid for completely. It's yours." "Why?" Amara whispered. "Because I love you. Because loving someone means wanting them to have everything they need to thrive, not just everything they need to survive. Because you saved my life, and I want to spend the rest of mine making sure you never doubt that you matter." Amara took the key with shaking hands. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll move in this weekend. Say you'll let me help you pick out furniture. Say you'll give us a real chance without all the fear and uncertainty." "I'm still going to be afraid," Amara admitted. "I'm still going to worry about what people think. I'm still going to feel like I don't belong in your world." "Good," Chisom said, "because I don't want you to belong in my world. I want us to build our own world, one where love matters more than money. where character matters more than class, where a maid and a billionaire can be equals because they choose to be. Amara laughed through her tears. That's impossibly idealistic. Maybe. But 6 months ago, you thought it was impossible for you to stand up to my mother. You thought it was impossible for you to become executive director of a foundation. You thought it was impossible for someone like you to matter. And yet here you are, proving that impossible is just a word. As the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Amara made a choice. Not the safe choice, not the easy choice, but her choice. Ask me, she said. Ask you what? You said the house is mine whether we stay together or not. Well, I want to stay together. So ask me properly. Understanding dawned in Chisom's eyes. He got down on one knee right there in a restaurant, causing other diners to gasp and pull out their phones. Amara Okafor, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. Will you marry me? Not because of money or status or obligation, but because I love you, because you make me want to be better, because life is too short to spend it with anyone but the person who sees you, really sees you, and loves you anyway. Yes, Amara said, pulling him to his feet. Yes, I'll marry you, and I'll spend every day proving to myself and to the world that I deserve this happiness. They kissed as cameras flashed and strangers applauded. By tomorrow, they'd be on every gossip blog, every news site, every social media platform. People would have opinions, some supportive, many critical. But for the first time, Amara didn't care. 1 year later, Amara stood in her home, her real home, preparing for her wedding. Her mother fussed with her dress, a beautiful Ankara and lace combination that honored both tradition and modernity. Her sisters giggled in the corner, their school uniforms replaced with beautiful bridesmaid dresses. Her brother Chitty, now thriving in university, stood guard at the door, turning away overeager photographers. Blessing, her former roommate, was there too. She'd reached out months ago with an apology. I was scared. I was wrong. You're the bravest person I know. Now she helped with Amara's makeup, her hands gentle and sure. Are you nervous? Blessing asked. Terrified, Amara admitted, but also sure. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. That's how you know it's real. Mrs. Adenuga, the woman who'd helped expose Mrs. Adenuga's pharmaceutical crimes, arrived with a gift, Bunmi's old Bible, worn and precious. My daughter loved this, Mrs. Adenuga said, pressing it into Amara's hands. She believed in justice, in goodness, in fighting for what's right even when it's hard. You reminded me of her. I think she wants you to have this. Amara hugged the older woman, both of them crying. The wedding was small by Lagos standards, only 200 guests instead of 1,000. It took place in a garden, not a cathedral. The food was Nigerian fusion, the music a mix of traditional and contemporary. Amara walked down the aisle on her mother's arm, and when she saw Chisom waiting for her, looking at her like she was the only person in the world, she knew she'd made the right choice. In his vows, Chisom said, "You saved my life twice. Once with CPR, and once by showing me that love doesn't have to be conditional or transactional. It could just be love. I promise to spend every day earning the gift of your trust." In her vows, Amara said, "You saw me when I was invisible. You believed me when everyone else doubted. You gave me the courage to fight for myself. I promise to never forget where I came from and to use our resources to help others find the courage to fight too." As they were pronounced husband and wife, the guests erupted in cheers. Somewhere in the crowd, cameras captured the moment for tomorrow's headlines, from Maid to Mrs., the Amara Okafor story. But Amara wasn't thinking about headlines. She was thinking about the journey that had brought her here, the pain, the triumph, the impossible choices that had shaped her into who she was. She thought about the girl she'd been 2 years ago, arriving in Lagos with nothing but dreams and desperation. She thought about all the domestic workers still fighting for dignity, for fair wages, for basic respect. She thought about Bunmi Adenuga, whose death had finally been avenged. She thought about Mrs. Obioma Adenuga, sitting in prison, her empire of lies finally collapsed. And she thought about second chances, about redemption, about the beautiful, messy, complicated truth that people aren't heroes or villains. They're just people trying to survive, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, sometimes finding love in the most unexpected places. At the reception, Emeka Nwosu raised a toast to Amara and Chisom. May your marriage be as strong as your courage, as enduring as your love, and as inspiring as your story. To fighting for what's right, even when it costs everything. To second chances. To impossible love. To truth. To truth, everyone echoed. Later, as Amara and Chisom danced their first dance as husband and wife, he whispered in her ear, "Any regrets?"